Good morning everyone, Mary Rose here at Stitch Bliss Corner on Friday the 1st of May 2020, which means it's the first day of Mania. And I've got off to a bit of a slow start this morning, but anyway, not to worry. Right, so I shall just show you what I'm going to be doing. It will be a form of Monogamous mania. When I say a form of it, it's because I'll still be doing some work on my full coverage because I can't really leave it alone. So, so I sort of made a bit of a compromise. And the piece that I'm going to be doing is a Dimensions Petite, and it's Dreaming of Tuscany by Barbara Filiski. I hope she had a wonderful holiday there, and that's what inspired her to create this lovely image. So that's the one I'm doing. Now, Dimensions kits, they always provide everything that you need, the needle and everything. And they provided this very nice piece of Ada, which is an excellent piece of fabric. But for me, it's a bit too small because I do like to have a bit of elbow room round for my ring because I always use a hoop. So I do like to have a bit more fabric. I mean, I could have used my very small hoop, but, you know, that would have been a bit too fiddly for me. So I decided on using this fabric that I food dyed, and I've marked the top. And you might think, well, that's a bit, you know, you can put a safety pin or anything in there. And for such a small piece, you'd think, well, you know, how could she possibly get that mixed up? But it's very easy when you're first stitching the first lot of stitches to get a bit confused about which direction things are going in. So I just like to have it marked there so I know exactly that that's the right way to have it. So, yeah, so I've got this rather dazzling, well, you know, I don't know, it just reminds me of a boiling hot day in Tuscany, so that's why I'm using it. The only thing is, the fabric that was supplied is 18 count, and this is 16 count. So there is a chance that I will run out of threads. But for a piece like this that's fairly small and, you know, doesn't rely on intricate shading or anything like that, I think I'll be able to substitute a DMC thread if I run out. So I'm not really worried about that. Now I'll just show you the threads that are provided. And I've put holes along here. Oh, that's still got a little bit of the... Yeah. So they're actually connected here, sort of glued in. But I've created holes on the other side and then put my threads through just to make it easier and quicker to get them. So 3 cards altogether. So there are the colours. And I'm all gridded up and ready. I start in the middle. Now, there are a few problems that I've created for myself by using a coloured fabric. And one is that in the background here, they're half threads, and some of the white shows through, and of course they've left this design, some of it's left bare for just the Ada to show there and the house and part of the cloth in the foreground here and the label on the wine bottle. So I'm going to have to stitch that in white. Now half stitches, I don't usually do half stitches. I usually, where it says to do a half stitch, unless it's a blended thread, in which case I can't get away from it, and I usually do the half stitch. But whenever it's a single colour, I always do a single thread full cross instead of 2-thread half stitch, because I like the evenness of it, and it will cover the blue in my fabric as well, because I've tried it out on a little section. I used a bit of thread on there just to see on the 16 count, and it gives pretty good coverage. Not that I'd be overly bothered if a little bit showed through, because it just, you know, it'll just be part of the piece. So that's one problem that I created for myself, because of course doing full cross, it's going to take longer to do this than it would if it was a half stitch 2-thread. With Across the Divide, the full coverage that I'm doing, I like to create depth in my pieces. So for me, the background, I've done a single thread full cross for that, and then the figures and the cliffs on either side and everything, I'm doing the, well, what am I talking about that one for? I can talk about that when I show you next time. But in any case, what I mean is, generally speaking, the foreground I do is usually full cross. But then any background, if I can do the full cross single thread, that's what I do, just to create a bit of dimension in there. So, anyway, enough of that. So what I'll be doing is tonight, when I finish stitching, I'll take a photograph of that, and then I'll be doing that every evening until Friday. And then next Friday I'll do a little update for you to see how far I got. Yeah, so that's really all I have to say. So it'll be a form of Monogamous Mania, but not exactly completely, because, as I say, I'll still be doing a little bit on the other one. Because I think it's very easy to lose momentum. You know, if you're working on a full coverage piece, you have to have a certain amount of determination and not look too far at how much you've got that remains to be done, you know, because it can be too, I wouldn't say disheartening, but, you know, it's a bit like if you're a high jumper, you can't just go and leap over the highest level. You have to go bit by bit by bit. And I think, you know, most high jumpers, they probably don't look at that high, imagine how high that bar is going to go. When they're in the early rounds of the competition, they just concentrate on where they are at that moment. And I think that's really important for full coverage, that you don't get ahead of yourself and look at all that blank fabric with no stitches on it and get disheartened, because that's very easy to do. It's much better to just concentrate on the spot that you're stitching on and complete that. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's all about Italy today, isn't it? And I think if you do that, then it's amazing the progress you can make. And then you look at it, you know, at the end of the day, and you think, my word, you know, that's quite an amount of progress I've made. You know, I think that's the big problem with confetti as well. You know, I mean, you can just get bogged down. But I think in your head you've just got to remember that the effect that you're creating is going to look marvellous. You know, I mean, Harlequin and I were looking at the piece that I started last year for Mania, which was Mardi Gras with Harlequin and Perrault the clown. And there's so much confetti in that. But, you know, it's just so worth it just to stand back and look at it, and you just can't believe that you've stitched it. It's really quite amazing. Anyway, this isn't about full coverage, it's about this charming piece. So I will see you on Friday and let you know how far I got. Until then, stay well, be well, and it's goodbye from Stitch Bliss Corner and Mary Rose. Goodbye for now.